Warm greetings from the high 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you all for joining me. Hello, Tracy. Hello, Joelle. Happy holidays to both of you and the viewing audience. This commentary is pertaining to the Idaho 4 University students that were brutally murdered in a home that three of the ladies shared with two other people. A male by the name of Ethan happened to be there with his girlfriend. Thank you for joining me. Did Moscow Police Department ask anyone for DNA, fingerprints, and who? Do they have a profile? Do they have a suspect yet? Thank you for joining me. Like, share, subscribe. Happy holidays, everybody. Law and crime is source number one.
We're switching gears a little bit right now for this segment to talk about the 4 University of Idaho students who were murdered last month. With us out in Moscow, Idaho, to bring us the latest is Law and Crime's very own Anjanette Levy, the Renaissance woman of the organization. She's out there in Moscow. You're looking kind of warm, Anjanette, so I'm glad to see that you're doing well. What are the updates?
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. We are here at that house on King Road where sadly, a little more than 3 weeks ago, those 4 students were murdered. Police say that autopsies revealed that they were all stabbed to death. Some of them had defensive wounds, although we don't know which victims actually had those defensive wounds. As you can see, more than 3 weeks later, there is still crime scene tape surrounding this home. It is still a crime scene, and it is under guard 24 hours a day by some type of law enforcement agent or officer. We don't know if this is private security. We're trying to get a little bit more information on that, but they've been switching in and out. We've also seen Moscow police, just officers patrolling here along King Road, just coming by and checking things out. Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves are the 4 students who were murdered more than 3 weeks ago on November 13th. It happened in the early morning hours, and Moscow police have been posting updates on the department's Facebook page each day. And they say they're really trying to determine the timeline for Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle that night. They had been at a party, we've been told, at the Sigma Chi house around 9 p.m. They returned home here to the King Road house around 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. So police say they're trying to pinpoint where they were, what they were doing, who they were interacting with in those hours as part of the investigation. They also say they've been looking into this claim that Kaylee Gonsalves had a stalker, and they've been able to determine that there was a man that she had encountered at a store or a restaurant somewhat recently before this happened, and they determined that this man and another man were there trying to meet women, and he was seen around Kaylee, but police say they've looked into that and they believe this is an isolated incident. However, they continue to look into additional information about her potentially having a stalker. So they are sifting through thousands of tips, conducting interviews as we speak. And of course, there is testing going on at the crime lab. This is a crime scene, and there was a lot of evidence collected. Obviously, we don't know the results of that testing, and we won't for some time.
So, Anthony, just falling back on my experience a little bit, I have just a couple observations. Now, nobody can feel better than this like I can. You've got thousands of tips. Information management is a problem in a case like this. You have to make sure that everybody is following up on leads and that you're still continuing with the investigation. There's a lot of forensics. We're talking about defensive wounds. We're talking about an up close and bloody murder scene. So there's a lot of scientific evidence that has to be gathered. But by the same token, what I'm seeing from a media management standpoint, not that this to me does mean something. If you're messing up the media management, are you messing up the investigation? What's striking to me is that we're getting contradictory information, whether or not this is targeted, whether or not the community should be concerned. And we're having prosecutors speak and we're having police officers speak, which is something that should never happen. It should be one person that's the spokesperson. I get not giving data. Sometimes cases take 6 months, 8 months, and it's frustrating to the public. But what is the sense out there as to whether or not this investigation is being done properly? And of course, we know there's multiple law enforcement agencies involved.
Well, I think there is a lot of frustration, and we've seen that in some of the comments from Steve Gonsalves, who is Kaylee Gonsalves' father. He said he's been frustrated. I spoke with him briefly by phone yesterday, and he is a father who is grieving, who wants answers like the rest of us do. We've heard those, we've heard them say it was targeted, and then maybe it wasn't. I mean, I think we all know that a lot of times in an investigation like this, you just don't know what you've got on your hands. You have to start looking at the victims, looking at their habits, who they hung out with. It's called victimology, really going through their cell phones and their Facebook messages and their TikTok messages and whatever else to see what was going on in their lives. Because it does seem like it would be unlikely that this wasn't targeted. And, you know, Bob, these are families that are grieving their loved ones. And we want to play a clip for you of Ethan Chapin's mother. She spoke recently. So let's listen to a little bit of what she had to say, and we'll talk on the other side.
Eternally grateful that we've spent so much time with him. And I want to remind you that that's the most important message that we have for you and your families, is to make sure that you spend as much time as possible with those people, because time is precious and it's something you can't get back.
And I think anytime we see something like this, we know that time is precious. Ethan Chapin mourned by his family as the other victims are mourned by their families. He was a triplet, Bob. He had siblings who attended the University of Idaho with him. So this is an incredibly sad case, and police have been talking about this whole idea of, you know, speculation that's been taking place, misinformation getting out. And they say that they're trying not to release a lot of information because they don't want to compromise the ongoing investigation and a potential of future prosecution. So we'd like to get some more answers from the police. We know in covering things like this, there are certain things that they will not release. But yes, you know, it's been kind of interesting because we've kind of asked to talk with the prosecutor here, who made some statements that raised some eyebrows last week. We've been told he will not be available for interviews. And the police are really saying that any information that comes out should only come from them. So they're trying to maintain control over this, but it's a huge, huge investigation and people want answers.
Yeah, I find this to be, again, this is a very unhealthy environment. The prosecutor ultimately is going to be the law enforcement agency that is going to be prosecuting the case. They're the ones that are bound by the ethics rules. They are the lead agency in the end analysis. In my mind, they should be the ones giving the data, because the police may be releasing data that could, they're the ones, the prosecutors, who judge whether it could be harmful or not to the case. So I don't get that. I have to ask you, Anjanette, based on what I'm seeing, how many murders has this police department investigated in this area? Are they competently skilled and seasoned investigators?
As far as we know, the last homicide here in Moscow happened around 2015. And I think you have to keep in mind, we've been told that Idaho State Police are assisting with this case, as is the FBI. The FBI has agents here assisting with the investigation as well. And they have people with the behavioral analysis unit. You know, that's the unit that does criminal profiling. They have 2 agents with that unit here trying to develop a profile of who would have carried out these murders. So it sounds like there are a lot of agencies involved in this investigation. Moscow would be the lead, of course. But, you know, obviously this is a big case. It's a quadruple homicide. You had 4 kids in their beds murdered in the middle of the night. So it's a big case. There's going to be a lot of forensic evidence involved in this. So it has to be handled very carefully because if they're going to prosecute this case, they need to ensure that they can get a conviction.
Yeah, and that's why the prosecutor should be handling pretty much also media. My only point that I got to say out there, Anjanette, if we have any say over it, let them know. Sometimes law enforcement agencies, multiple agencies, don't play well in the sandbox. That is a fact. So hopefully that is not occurring.
They cut that short. Sorry about that. Law and crime is the source. One moment. Thank you for joining me. Happy holidays to everybody. Didn't plan to go on today, but I'm here. No new developments that I know of. Just a few uploads from news agents. Let's chop up Law and Crime Network. Yes, no profile. But as most of you know, they can have a profile and it's not accurate. So I don't know what they've got going on. Do they have a profile? Do they have a suspect? Ask anybody for DNA yet? Fingerprints. Anybody that's a prospect, have they asked for DNA fingerprints? If they didn't ask, why not? Did anybody deny fingerprints DNA if asked? I'm going to start that off. That's my own personal commentary. The clearing of the suspect process. Know that if a person becomes a person of interest, we're hoping they would do due diligence to follow protocol, check them out, ask the necessary questions, alibis, so on and so forth. Target. Who was the target, or was there ever a target? Proper investigation. Some may feel this Moscow Police Department or not. Some do. There have been many differences of opinions. The father has been very frustrated, as most of you have heard his commentary in the past couple of days. I'd like to know the people that were checked. Who are they? Were they checked for wounds, cuts, video, verified alibis? The issue of submitting DNA, most of you know, would take weeks to do, depending on who's going to be running the DNA, the FBI or the state, Idaho State Police. So who will be running that DNA? And then you have to count a backlog of other DNA being tested. So the person could naturally be walking around free. Even let's say they pulled up someone's shirt, saw they had cuts on them, cuts on their hands, wrists. Would they hold them under suspicion or keep them on the radar? I don't know Idaho state law. Stalker claims by the dad. It's the same stalker claim that they're now bringing forward about two guys at a store or business, one trying to approach her, following her outside. Miss Kaylee did not make contact. One would wonder, why did he follow her out of the store? Was there conversation? Did he say something to her? Did she say something back? Is this the same incident that she told her father about? I'm just curious. This new information of a stalker and two guys in a business, some type of store, I don't know. Is it the same incident that she spoke to her dad about? How long ago was this? I thought I heard October. If not, I'll put a correction in the video. Will they put a rush on any DNA gathered by any prospects? So that's what we need to know. Has anyone volunteered DNA besides Mr. Jeremy, the neighbor? Did the police ask anybody, a suspect, or any people that were stayed at the house, the roommates, boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, family members, anybody that's been recommended as a suspect? Have they asked them for DNA and fingerprints? Because you will hear in this live stream that it is recommended that you do so. Doesn't matter who it is, mama, dog, cat, don't matter. So long as you know the victim, you're talking at the tongue, DNA should be gathered from you, and your fingerprints should be gathered and also put in the CODIS database, just in case. And many cities and towns are doing it for basic crimes, just in case the suspect decides to cross over and leave petty crimes to felonious crimes, such as attempted murder and murder, sexual assault, so on and so forth. As I told you before, in order to know who the perpetrator is, we got to know a little something about the kids. Who are the kids? Their personalities, their differences, how they talk to people, how they treat people, how people treated them. That's going to lead us to our killer. Any incidents, legal troubles. How many were interviewed How many tips of suspects? We got tips, but how many are actual suspects? And as most of you know, social media has caused a stink with mailing and things. Probably half, 5,000 tips. Half of those are probably internet gossip. I don't believe that the police is going to release any information because they already released a statement the other day. And it's basically telling you to not focus on speculation. Hello, everybody in the chat. So I don't see anything coming from the police. And the fact that the father, Mr. Gonzalez, has been critical of the police department, I don't see him saying anything. Them saying anything to him. Will they say something to the other family? I don't know. I don't know. Has a profile been made? If so, when? You hear this lady saying the developing one. So is that true? Do they not have a profile? If so, if they have one, is it accurate? Has it changed since 2 weeks ago, a week ago? And naturally, as evidence come in, things can change, such as a profile. You hear that they have behavioral analysts on this case. So, profile developing or already developed. Agencies not playing well together. Very true. You heard that at the end of this commentary. Because what happens is people get the big head and they don't want to share. So I can see any police department, especially a small one, feeling infuriated or intimidated by state police or FBI coming in, making them look like they're inadequate. But then there's those times when they seek them out deliberately because they know they can't work the case on their own. Let's go to our next commentary, and then I'll read the rest of my notes. Very interesting information. First source was Law and Crime. The next source is how do police rule out suspects in cases like Idaho murders? Banfield is going to give us a commentary. Thank you all so much for joining me.
There is no question for the families of the Idaho murder victims that they're just tired of waiting for police to come up with a breakthrough. And tonight, at least one of those families has decided to do more than just wait. Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee, says that he is hiring private investigators to supplement the work of a police force that he calls, quote, inexperienced and, quote, not exactly the most tech-savvy people. Gonzalez tells the New York Post that one of the investigating officers on the team is just 26 years old. And the last time Moscow, Idaho responded to a murder, that officer would have just been 19. Gonzalez is also worried that potential suspects are being ruled out too fast. Case in point, the man in the hoodie, right here, seen caught on camera standing near Kaylee and her best friend, Maddie. You can see Kaylee and Maddie on the right, and then you can see the guy with the baseball cap putting his hoodie up behind them. You know, that happened at the food truck just hours before the kids were murdered. The girls are highlighted. The guy is highlighted. And you can see he's not buying food. They are. He never does, in fact. You can never see him doing that. He just stands several feet away. And then when the girls move off from the ordering counter, he continues to stay close by them. And he moves with them, in fact. And for about 10 minutes, he's standing there with them. And it seems that Maddie actually has an interaction with him. At one point, it seems as though the audio is not perfectly clear, but watch carefully here. And the audio that we've been able to listen to, and actually we've been able to boost it, it appears that she says, F you, in the direction of the man in the hoodie. Again, it's hard to tell, but we're not the only ones who heard it. Several witnesses heard that as well. A witness recalls that the hoodie, the man in the hoodie, actually said he wanted to make sure that the girls got home safely. And that's why he was standing so close. But it's unclear if the man in the hoodie even knew the girls, since they barely spoke and they barely interacted. And he appeared to leave in quite a hurry A witness says that he muttered an expletive as soon as he noticed that the girls had walked away. And then he followed them real quickly too. There he goes. Never once did he order food after lingering at the food truck for more than 10 minutes. The girls, in fact, rode home with a car service, not the man in the hoodie. Police do say he's been identified, he's been interviewed, and at least for now, he's been cleared. But where is he? Tonight, where is he? That's a good question, because Kaylee's dad says that he has heard the man in the hoodie left the country without giving a DNA sample to the police. The family aired their frustration on Friday with our Brian Enton.
I just feel like there's been a couple individuals that were cleared very fast. That may not, maybe she shouldn't have been. And yeah.
She had a strong alibi.
Just really fast.
You can dismiss.
An hour later, and we're like, what? And I don't know. I don't know anything about those individuals. I just know they were people that, definitely should have been looked at. And yeah.
I don't know what would prevent you from sharing somebody's alibi.
I want to bring in retired NYPD homicide detective Sergeant Bill Cannon and Detective Phil Grimaldi. They have worked hundreds of murder cases and now host the popular podcast called Police Off the Cuff. Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Sergeant Cannon, I'm going to begin with you. How fast is too fast to clear a suspect in a case this severe, 4 victims of a brutal homicide?
I think that there's a mistaken point that they're thinking that someone is cleared. You can always bring someone back in if evidence and other people's witnesses tell you that the person is involved. You have to be careful of pushing too hard on someone that you're interviewing, because they can always lawyer up and then the interview is over. So they can still peripherally conduct the investigation and determine that the person is cleared. The person's never cleared until the investigation or there's an arrest made. So I think that they're erring on this, that he's cleared. They can always bring him back in if they have evidence against him.
So Detective Grimaldi, jump in on that and tell me about, the kinds of alibis that would have the police say publicly so soon in the case, nope, nothing to see here. I found it odd. I've covered a lot of murders too, and I'm used to the public saying, everyone's under umbrella of suspicion.
Absolutely. I think that the fact that he did interact with those people around that food truck, he was probably pretty easily to identify and interview. Perhaps he did have a concrete alibi. Let's say he was on videotape somewhere. Someone said, or it was reported, that he drove 5 hours to a relative's home. Did his cell phone travel that 5 hours? Did they clear him with that? Just because a person gives a story doesn't mean that we're going to buy it right away. We're going to try and corroborate it, whether it be through technology, cell phone cameras. If I find the person that the person who the hoodie guy says he was with, I want to talk to that person. I want to ask them, was he with you? What was the amount of time that he was with you? Is there any way to corroborate that you're telling the truth? Is there a video camera? Do you have a Ring doorbell camera? Those are the type of things that I think I would be looking for. And I have to piggyback what Bill just said, 100%. Just because he's been cleared does not mean that further evidence is developed or interviews point at this particular individual. Doesn't mean he can't be put back into the suspect.
Does it mean anything, Bill, that the family of Kaylee Gonzalez has heard and learned in some way that he is out of the country now, and that he had not submitted DNA? It would seem to me, if you're going to clear someone, you'd say, spit in the cup on your way out. Nothing personal, but we'll clear you. But just give us what we need to cross our T's and dot the I's.
We had recommended early on in this investigation that every single person they interviewed, they asked for voluntarily to swab for DNA and to take major case fingerprints, because also down the road, they may need elimination DNA and elimination fingerprints when they do arrest someone. So if this case goes to trial, because a clever defense attorney will be pointing at all the different fingerprints and DNA that's inside that house.
So, Phil, private investigator. I know that doesn't always bode well for officers who are working one tack and private investigators who are working another tack. I get it, why the families feel that they need some added heft here. But being a former detective, what does it say to you? How hard does it make your job, or does it help?
I understand the frustration with families. I can't even imagine what they must be going through. The father, Chris Gonzalez, he said the other night on an interview, he can't even sleep at night. He lays in bed and all he can think about is that his daughter's been killed and the person that's responsible is out there. But hiring a private investigator at this point, I don't think I would definitely err against that. I don't think it's a good idea. We don't want anyone getting in the way or distracting the investigators in this case. I have full confidence in the Moscow PD, the state police, the FBI. I think there's enough manpower in this case. And someone asked me how much manpower is enough. The answer to that question is whatever the investigation is calling for, that's the amount of manpower that would be needed. If the local police need to reach out to the FBI, they have to pull in people from other locations, that's fine. Local and state jurisdictions can also send personnel, but I think they got this covered pretty well. There was some missteps in the early communication on this case, but I think that 100% there's going to be a successful conclusion to this case. I think the families might want to get together and maybe perhaps put up a reward, do things like that, hand out flyers. Those are the things that Bill and I have suggested on our podcast previously on the shows that we did covering this case.
Got to wrap it there, guys. Thank you.
If this
Real
case
quick,
is
I
going to
got
be
5 seconds left.
okay, it's going to be solved by science. This case by evidence.
I always feel the same way. It doesn't take the place of good gumshoe work. You guys know it all too well. You did it for decades. Detectives Bill Cannon and Phil Grimaldi, thanks very much. It's called Police Off the Cuff. It's a great podcast. I recommend everybody, tune in at some point. Check out their coverage of this.
All right, everybody. That's Banfield News Nation. Off the Cuff, we're speaking. Thank you all so much for joining me. Let me get started here. Commentary. Woo, Lordy. What a mess. What a mess. Got a few of you here in the chat viewing. Welcome to Everyday Shenanigans. Let's get started on the commentary, shall we? The title of my video is, did Moscow Police Department ask anyone for DNA, fingerprints? If so, who? Did anybody deny the request? If so, why not? Why would you deny the request if you're not a suspect? Is there a profile and is there a suspect, plural? As I told you before, in order to solve this crime, naturally you need DNA, CCTV footage, cameras, verification, pings, phone calls, texts, eyewitness accounts, and information pertaining to the victims. Who are the victims? Who are they as people? That's going to lead you to the killer. Hold on one second. Okay. As I said before earlier in this commentary, anybody brought in as a suspect and or intervened into this storyline some type of way, roommates that survived, the people standing outside, were all of them checked for wounds and cuts on their body? Did they strip them down to see cuts on body, legs, arms, neck, face? Were the alibis checked through surveillance cameras? Will any of them be re-evaluated? Because that can happen. This is still an ongoing investigation. As I said, did anybody submit DNA? Naturally, it's going to take weeks to get the DNA back. So naturally, the people will be walking around free if one of those people that they talked to is the culprit. And especially if they don't have anything on them, such as wounds, cuts, they will walk around free. Now, was there anybody that they looked at that had suspicious wounds, cuts? What is the protocol to keep him or her detained? I do not know Idaho law, as I stated. Stalker claimed by the dad. Is it the same incident? Just re-going over my notes. Same incident that the daughter told him about. How long ago was it? This incident with the guy at the store following her outside, did make contact with her. Is it possible that the daughter exaggerated a stalker? What's the truth? Something else has bothered me that somebody said on my channel. But see, there's always something you forget in a story when listening to information. The fact that the father was talking about the text messages from the 911 call is bothersome. October, okay, that's what I thought. October incident with the alleged stalker. What's the truth to that? Is that the one she was talking about? Because somebody trying to follow you to say hello or goodbye, it's not really considered a stalker. You have to have seen that person several places thereafter to, I would say, to qualify him, her as a stalker. So did she ever see the person again at the store, church, on the street, standing outside the house, so on and so forth? The fact that Mr. Gonzalez says he looked at text messages on her phone, I want to know, how did you look at text messages on her phone, or did you go to the phone company and get a printout? Make us understand. Because that is a very suspicious comment when we know that nobody should have access to anybody's phone, iPads, computer, except for the detectives and the forensic team. So when somebody put that on my comment page, I guess yesterday, that struck me very peculiar and strange. How would you be able to read your daughter's text messages, Mr. Gonzalez? Please explain that to the queen. Because anything left at that house after death should have been seized by the detectives and all agencies that came on board. How many people have been interviewed thus far as a suspect eyewitness? Over 5,000 tips I brought you yesterday. How many of them, as I said, are just messy boots, messy internet junkies calling in stuff that they don't know anything about? Don't know the victims, don't know the people, don't know the town, but just hearing gossip and calling in, hey, I want to tell you what they said on YouTube. How many tips are actual tips? Oh, I saw her yesterday. Oh, yeah, I sat in class with her 2 days ago. Actual tips. No release of information from the police department. They did put out a statement. I read that to you yesterday on Twitter, from Twitter. Basically, they're letting you know they're not trying to talk to you all because they don't want to hinder this investigation and prosecution later if and when they find a suspect. I think most of you who know the law know how that goes. Anything you do that is not ironclad by the book, it will haunt you later when you get a suspect. All right. So they got a printout. All right. That's what I thought. Anyway. So the father didn't have the phone. He got a printout. That's what I was trying to figure out, because I thought somebody asked that question. I thought there's no way he should have been able to have access to that phone. But see, that's the whole thing. When you say things, you don't say, I got a printout. People just assume the worst. So we'll jump off that subject, because I'm not here to dwell on Mr. Gonzalez. I've had about enough of that. Once again, how many people have been interviewed total in this investigation? I don't believe the police are going to release any information to Mr. Gonzalez and the family and other families, because he's, I think, is a problem for them, and he's possibly made it bad for the other family members with his dicey comments and just, to me, being disrespectful of the other people who have dead children. The children are deceased, so you need to tread light in your conversation and how you word things. He talks as if basically his daughter is the only one that died, and that's not fair to the other families, and it's not fair to the victims, because 4 people perished, all died by stab wounds, allegedly. So speaking of just your daughter, we get that you're angry, but the other parents are grieving as well. They lost their children. And as I said to you yesterday, they could also turn on you and say, well, if you believe it's your child, well, your child caused my child to be killed. And I don't think he wants that battle right now. You hear one of the guys in here speaking that so far it's an unhealthy environment with the DA. The DA should be giving out information pertaining to the case and not the police department. Once again, has a profile been made? If so, when? Is it accurate? Has it changed? Or do they not have one? And naturally, everything's going to depend on the evidence that has been analyzed. So what evidence has been analyzed that has come back? DNA, pings, what? Video surveillance, phone devices, apps, what? Behavioral analysts are on this case. I believe it's 2 of them. That's who will be building this profile of the killer. And also you hear agencies may not play well because naturally somebody may get the big head and there is your conflict. News Nation, second source. Something that some of you probably didn't pay attention to in that video at the Grub bus, is that Kaylee had a phone in her hand and she was adamant holding it like with 2 hands would lead one to think she was either talking to somebody on video chat, looking at something, or streaming live. Now imagine if she was streaming live, then possibly the killer saw her live and knew where she was, because I don't know if she had moved out or not. There's differences in that. My thing is I have to have a receipt because, as I said, you can't build on something without knowing something. And I don't want to be sitting up here speculating off of he said, she said, and gossip. So I need a receipt that she actually moved out of that house, because all that's going to show and build your killer, build your prospect of who the suspect is. Okay? So there you have it. Who was she talking to on the phone? Was she streaming live? Because that's very important, because you're trying to figure out who the killer is. So if indeed she was streaming live, then she has announced to the world where she was, which was the Grub bus. Was the killer watching, if indeed that was a live stream? Very pertinent information. I'd like to know if her last live stream was that night and she's standing at the Grub Hub filming. That would be very pivotal in this investigation. Once again, interaction between she and the people out there, her and Maddie. They do believe she used profanities. Was it jokingly? Serious? Can't see because her head is behind. Her head's turned. You can't see her facial expressions to know if she was serious or not. Did the guy follow them from somewhere else on that street, another bar? Where is the bar footage that she allegedly went to with Maddie? Why haven't they released anything? I find it very strange. Very strange. Any other places on that street or jurisdiction? Do you have surveillance of the girls? Anybody beside them, bothering them? Any store cameras on the street showing same people from a bar or establishment following them down the street? A lot of rumors about this certain boy. I'm not here to focus on any of that, because as I said, in the end, everything depends on the police department and who they deem to talk to, ask for DNA, fingerprints. You entitled to interpret that video how you see fit, of him moving here, moving there. He may have muttered something when the girls walked off. Maybe he was flirting. Maybe he was trying to talk to her. Maybe he was being deviant. But the point is, how would he have followed her from there when they got into a ride service car? And if he didn't have a car right there at the scene, then he couldn't have followed them home. Or anybody else besides that guy in the hoodie. What was said in that conversation exactly? As I said, if anyone was following, you would not know how they were leaving unless you watched and they got in a car. So the only way they would have been followed from that location, the Grub bus, is if someone had a car right there and jumped in it the same time they got in their car and followed them to the house. The 2 gentlemen speaking in this News Nation segment are from off the cuff. They are retired detectives. One thing I want to say about the Grub bus surveillance. If there was no Grub bus, you wouldn't even know that those 2 kids went there to get food, You would have never known about the guy who had to go online to explain himself when you all started pointing fingers, some of you. And you would have known about the guy with the hat and the hoodie. Stay woke. That is the whole point. You would not have known about that camera or that Grub bus if there was no camera to show that the girls had been there. And that guy, the heavier-set guy, he looks like he's Hawaiian or Hispanic, he eventually went to the police department to give a statement that he saw them because they had not responded to him. And some might feel like somebody should have. So I don't know what's the timeline of when he decided to go down there to the police department. Was it the next day, 2 days, 3 days later? I don't remember hearing it in his commentary on the video, but nonetheless, he took it upon himself. And I think that was a honorable thing to do. Now, flip side of that is some people feel like when they're sicko wackos, they will immerse themselves in the case. Not all suspects do that. Not all killers do that. Not all killers go call police, newspapers. They want to remain anonymous. But once again, if there was no Grub bus CCTV, none of you all would know the girls were there, and you wouldn't have somebody to point fingers at, because some of you have pointed fingers at both of the guys there. And last I checked, there were more people standing out there that could have easily been watching the girls if we want to say they were stalked that night. But as I brought you commentary yesterday, you don't know who was watching them, when they was watching them, if they fell out with somebody, if somebody was holding a grudge from 2 weeks ago, 5 months ago, just decided, okay, on this night, I'm getting ready to go handle these kids. See, that's the thing. You don't know these kids. That's why I said you've got to find out who the kids are in order to find the suspect. Because if you don't have any DNA, no evidence, no surveillance cameras, no cameras inside of the house, no cameras to identify a person coming out of the house. Let's say the person is seen, but they were in disguise. You still got to try to figure out who the person is. And how are you going to do that if you can't even figure out who the person is, if indeed the person was in disguise or there is no footage of the person coming in, going in, or coming out? Has the police walked around that general area asking for CCTV footage where the girls were congregating? How many places did they go that night? That's never been mentioned. Same thing with Ethan and Xana. Everybody's going on and on and on about where they were that night, where they were. As I said, when you are having fun and living your life, you're not anticipating that you're going to end up dead at the end of the night. So therefore, they don't have to explain where they were. And if you have them clocking in at 1:56, 1:45, whichever the time is, 1:45, then you should know where they were. So now it goes back to what I said earlier. How did they get the time that they came in at 1:45? Is it from somebody's doorbell camera or a camera in the house? Neighbor's camera. How did they get that time? Because if you're using GPS on a car, then the GPS would also tell you the places they went that night. If you're going off a GPS on their cell phones, same thing. The cell phone should tell you the general area where they were. Off the cuff, we're talking about alibis, because that's been a problem with the family, worrying about the alibis, wanting to know who they are. Common sense should tell you police are not going to tell you the alibis so you don't interfere in the investigation and go confront the people that were said to be the alibis. You go up to them, start asking questions, they might become intimidated, scared, or pop off. And they don't need any problems in the investigation. So that's one reason why they would never tell you their alibis, Mr. Consalves. I think you know that. Has the police told the families of a prospect person of interest? If so, when? If not, has the family asked? Has the police told who their persons of interest are to the family, or have they kept that quiet? And if they never volunteered who they had coming in to interview, did the parents ask who are all the people you have talked to and spoken to? As I said with the tips, over 5,000. Are most of those tips gossip, innuendos, internet junkies, hags, armchair detectives, meddling armchair detectives with nothing to do and just pointing in the direction of gossip they've heard on a YouTube channel or Facebook group, or who they think the killer is, because that's all that's happened in the past 3 weeks? Are people picking up people from photographs and the CCTV at the Grub hub and pointing the fingers at them? He did it. No, he did it. No, she did it. Now you think the father did it. This is exactly what I'm saying. This is why the father shouldn't be talking, because how ill would that be? People would start thinking you had something to do with the murder of your child. Then some of you wanted to mention the mother of Xana because she went to jail and this and that and what she may be into. See, all the way out far left. And you can ruin a person's life by accusations. You can get somebody fired. Hey, they keep talking about you on the internet. I don't want you working here. You all need to think. Because as I said yesterday, if it was you, you would not want people pointing the finger at you because you were standing in the grocery store line with somebody. You said hello. Now they show up dead. Now people are following you. Your name gets out there. Now people are stalking you, doxing you, and in your inbox. You all got to know when to stop. Because it's disrespectful to the dead. And it's disrespectful to the living and the parents. Shame on you if you're one of those people that have been calling in tips to the FBI, state police, and Moscow Police Department with frivolous tips and gossip and innuendos. You know better. And as I said, that to me is a sign that you are unstable. I've heard many people since I've been on this network, they have said in the chat, oh yeah, I called about Summer's case, or I called about Quentin's case, or I called about whatever the case is. And the first thing I would say is, why? Do you know Summer Wells? Do you know these kids over here? No, I don't know. Well, then you didn't have any business calling the police. You didn't have any business calling the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is serious. These people are about business. They don't have time to sit here and answer phone calls from people who are sitting at home eating donuts and coffee all day with nothing to do. And I realized that when I look at your comments. See, a lot of you don't think before you speak, and you don't look at your comments. I think if some of you would go back in the chat, because I've decided to start going back in the chat and look at the comments. Some of you are not stable. But I'm saying that. May hurt your feelings. I don't really care. Because some of the stuff you say is just outright cruel and just ridiculous. You don't have to like the people in the story. You don't have to believe the people in the story. But you got to have proof to an allegation of murder. The father has been very critical, Mr. Gonsalves, of the police. So this is why I said I don't see the police sharing anything with him, because he's been too critical. He's now consulting with PI. How are you going to pay for that, Mr. Gonsalves? Will this person be working on their own, out of their own pocket? How's that going to work when you're talking about 4 deaths? Because all roads lead to let you tell it your daughter. So how's this going to work? This man is going to be investigating 4 separate people. This is serious. 4 separate lives, 4 separate dispositions. Has he hired the PI yet? Is he or they, agency, charging Mr. Gonsalves money for their services? How do the families feel about Mr. Gonsalves' conflicting statements and negative comments about his daughter and the wounds and the this and that between Maddie? They don't match up. Because he acts as if he's the only one that lost a child, the only one that had a child murdered. So how do the families feel about his commentary? Have they talked to the police since the last time? When was the last time? Has the police been sharing information with them? Since he said he's not getting any information. And I think Xana's mom said she didn't hear anything. She asked maybe one time. So when was the last time the police consulted with everybody? Or are they picking and choosing who to talk to depending on their disposition? What information has the family asked from the police department as of late? Has Xana's mom called the police or asked anything? Or is she waiting for the dad and the sister to do everything? Because it seems like to me in that last interview, I believe it was News Nation with Banfield, she didn't know much about her daughter of anything. And she didn't know anything about the people. She never talked to the roommates. I don't think she would even think to call them or ask to speak to them, which is very peculiar to me. So I'm trying to understand the mode of this mechanism these people got going on. You maybe talk to them once, but you're letting your husband, boyfriend, baby daddy, whoever do all the talking, Xana's father. So you're not engaging. Why? Why not? Why are you letting somebody else do all the work? That's your child. Whether you had a good relationship with her or not. You should be asking questions. You definitely should be talking to those girls. Because the girls lived in the house. And the girls would know more than anybody on the outside. Because people in your house should know a little bit something about you that another person wouldn't know. Such as your habits, when you get up, when you go to bed, who you bring over to the house, how you talk when the doors are closed. They won't. Because who's to say that these people are not portraying a different image from when they're in the house to when they're outside in public? Because we all can shift, be chameleons, and also be sociopaths. And our killer is definitely that, because he's walking around pretending to be a nice guy and he's just snuffed out 4 kids. The question was also asked about how fast to clear suspects. Naturally, that depends on evidence and the witnesses involved. You also heard off the cuff say don't rush too hard. Don't pound on the person of interest or people you're talking to as so they don't lawyer up. And a person is never cleared until an arrest is made. That's what was said in this commentary. Everyone is under suspicion. The guy that everybody's talking about, how was he cleared? CCTV, cell phone, pinging, somebody corroborate where he was sleeping, where he was working. What's the truth? Since now he's the hot topic on YouTube. And as I said, being cleared does not mean they won't come back to talk to you or interrogate you. And if no DNA has been gathered, we also have to wait to see what they have at the scene as far as DNA, and pray that these people, the detectives, have gathered DNA from whomever was near the kids, around the kids. They've already got a sample to compare when the lab brings back a profile of DNA, if ever. Off the Cuff recommends fingerprints, DNA from everybody that's a prospect, close proximity to the kids. As I said, has the police department asked all friends, family members that interacted with them, whoever's been seen on CCTV, did you ask for DNA? And has anybody denied if you did? One of the retired detectives was asked about the private detective. Do you think it's a good idea? He said it is not. You don't want a person getting in the way. And also said he believes that Moscow Police Department, he has confidence in them to conduct this investigation of these murders. They've got the help of the FBI, state police, so they should be okay. Somebody also asks, or Banfield asks about how much is enough as far as coverage of help, outside help. He said, well, all they have to do is ask people to assist, which they have, if need be. And he does believe they have enough manpower to handle this investigation. He also mentioned about missteps early on with the conflicting information between the district attorney and the police department, which was very strange. He feels like the families, all of them, should step up and bring forward a reward for the children, plus hand out flyers. He does believe that this case will have a 100% successful conclusion. But the interesting part about their recommendation of flyers and a reward, you hear Mr. Gonsalves say he did not think the city and the police, mayor, or whomever would want them to hand out flyers and a reward as not to draw attention to the town, since it is a small college town. And I would somewhat agree with that. Because when you start putting up posters, flyers, you have people coming into town for work at the university, transferring to the university, first-year students, high school students, whatsoever. That would possibly be a turnoff, seeing 4 kids on a poster, 3 living in a house, 1 was visiting, and now you're thinking, is this a school I want to attend? Maybe not. Same thing with the parents. Same thing with anybody wanting to choose to work at the university. Because if you don't have a suspect, then you don't know who would be the next target. And that's the part of this story that's so scary, is that you don't have a suspect, you don't know who will be the next target. If it's indeed a serial killer, person that intend to be a serial killer, won't even matter. Everything's about money. It's the American way. People can talk around the subject all day, but in the end, everything is about money. I don't care who you work for, your own private life and bills, goals, university, small colleges, they're all the same. They cannot sustain without enrollment. They cannot sustain without people patronizing football games, basketball games, baseball games, track and field, soccer. That's outside money. They need that money. So I wouldn't doubt that they don't want posters up just yet. But at what point? 3 weeks now, something needs to go up. A reward needs to go up. And it is sad that one has to be offered in order to get people to talk, because we live in a world where people feel like snitching is inappropriate. But how are you snitching on somebody snuffing out 4 kids? I don't care that they're 21, 20. They're still kids. I'm old enough to be their mother, so they're children to me. Lord have mercy. He says evidence will solve this case. Science. That's the end of that commentary for News Nation. My own personal commentary. Has the killer been back by the house? The house is guarded at the moment, 24 hours a day. I'm assuming they're wrapping up their investigation from inside, gathering information, evidence, so on and so forth. So what we have to ask ourselves, has the killer walked by the house or drove by the house? If so, how many times? Everyone's concerned about the whereabouts of Ethan and Xana. Once again, 1:45. But why do you not have a time pertaining to where they were in the evening? I'm not here to dwell on any of that, because by now something should have come back pertaining to what they did after the frat party. And in the end, there's going to always be a chance when you don't know where somebody is, depending on if their phone was on, phone off, hadn't been charged, so on and so forth. Who's to say they didn't take a drive around town, across town? So what we have to ask ourselves is the obvious question. How did you get a time of 1:45, but you don't have a time of where they were after 9 p.m.? Thank you so much. Well, the town could collapse if indeed you don't have money generated in the town. So what you have to ask yourself is the obvious. What is in the town besides the University of Idaho that could help sustain? Oh my God. Sustain the town. Almost 200 in the room. Thank you so much for joining me. I will drop the link to see if anybody wants to give their commentary. If not, I will check out of here. I don't want to do any more long lives. One second. Woo, you all know y'all keep up with the gossip, do you not? Man, I ain't never seen nothing like it. Scary. Very scary. I see why a lot of people don't like to engage in conversations about certain things. I get it now. I mean, I truly get it. Some people don't engage in this type of talk, true crime or anything. It could be somebody famous, accused of something. There's some people, especially men, they don't like engaging in anything that would be deemed negative about a person. Because naturally people know if you'll talk about a certain subject negatively, you'll talk about them. It's just the way it is. If you have a commentary pertaining to the information I brought you, as far as did they ask anyone for DNA, the police, fingerprints? If so, who? Do they have a profile and or suspect in mind or suspects? The link is in the chat. Thank you for joining me. Happy holidays to the viewing audience. Please be careful shopping. Be aware of your surroundings while out. And try not to post too much personal things to social media during the holidays or anytime, quite frankly. Because you do not know who's watching. That is how a lot of people are getting robbed. It's because they keep posting stuff to social media. You have got to stop that. You just can't post everything you're doing, flashing your jewelry and your designer clothes and all that kind of stuff. Because people know how much that stuff costs, if it's real. Well, women, we're more talkers. That's the problem. We talk more. If you have an opinion pertaining to the storyline, please hit the link. I've given my commentary. I don't really have much more to say pertaining to this case. It's a very baffling case. I pray that a suspect will be apprehended, or suspects, and they receive the fullest extent of the law. Frankly, they need the death penalty because that's what they gave those kids. Tortured them to death. It wouldn't bother me none. Would not bother me any. Well, you have to be careful posting anything these days, especially if you don't have a good security system on your house. People know you, know where you live. The area you live in has a lot of traffic. I mean, sometimes the traffic can be good, but then it depends on what type of traffic it is. If it's negative type traffic, you don't want your house unattended, especially if you don't have anybody going by there to check on your house or your apartment. Well, the link is in the chat. I'm an hour into this live stream. Feel free to go back to the beginning of this live to get the same information and the sources. Now, all that chitter chatter you all be doing down there in the chat. Well, that's what people do when they go on vacation. They stream themselves going live. They take pictures, they post them. That's how people know where they are. Because once you go live, that's your evidence right there. They see the background. You're at the beach. You're in Philadelphia, wherever. They know you're not home. Well, I'm not going to hold you guys. It's 5:24 here in the high 10. And I have some things I could be doing besides sitting up here. I think I've given you the gist of the information. Law and Crime Network was source number 1, and News Nation with Banfield was source number 2 if you need verification for the information. As I said, I don't see the police giving out any more information to the families. Mr. Gonsalves has solved that because of his indifference with them, and he feels like he's not getting the adequate information. And most importantly, this is an open investigation, and he does not seem to understand. They can't share with you alibis and who came in and whose house they went and looked at and whose door they knocked on and who they think the suspect is, because they don't know you. They don't know if you might go try to say something to the people, the persons, their family, friends, whomever. And that would be interfering. So, no. And he should know that. Well, people have gotten jiggy, more jiggy, posting their personal rooms. And you have to be careful about that too. Posting your bedroom and posting inside the house where people can see the furniture, because even if you give them a tour, all it takes is for somebody to go make up something. Oh yeah, I've been with her. I've been with him. I've been in her house. It looks like this. And the first thing a person will say is, well, they said they was in your house. They were in your bedroom. And then you'd be like, oh, I don't know him. He hasn't been in my bedroom. Well, he described it. Yeah, because you posted a picture. You have to be careful with posting things. Sometimes we get beside ourselves. We just don't think. And that's what's wrong with social media. There's no thinking involved. It's just do. Posting your food, post you went to Applebee's, sit down at the table, go live, post the food when the waitress bring it out, post it while eating, can't even enjoy the food. Some people don't even want people posting when you're out because they don't want people to know where they are. They may have lied to somebody and told them they were somewhere. And if you go live with them in the video, now people know that that person was with you, and they may have lied to somebody else about where they were. I caught that from a person years ago. She didn't want you posting nothing. And I thought, yeah, that's because you're lying to somebody else about where you're going, which I feel like if you're grown, you're not married, why do you got to lie about where you're going? The person calling and asks you, hey, what you doing? And you say, oh, I'm busy. I'm with a friend. We're out eating, shopping. That should be the end of the conversation. What difference does it matter if the person wants to post a picture with you in a restaurant or out and about? Only because you're living a certain way, they can't post a picture with you or a live stream. So that's those people like that you might want to reconsider if you want to be around them or not. But I get it. Some people like to post too much, and that can possibly become annoying. So it really depends on your temperament as far as streaming live and taking photographs. So a lot of people don't like being in pictures. I get it. And once again, it does show that you're out. If a person wants to believe you are at a certain place at that time. But you could wake up the next day, post the pictures at 8 o'clock, 9. People think you're there, but you're not. You may have went there the night before. So you just have to be careful. But a lot of people are addicted to social media, so it is what it is. But once again, that is something I noticed in that Grubhub video. Kaylee was on her phone. So was she posting live, going live to where possibly a killer, the killer, saw her and knew that she was near the town, in town, however it goes, because I don't know if she moved out or not. Like I said, I don't have a receipt. Hello, Closer. How you doing, sweetie? If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign Ganji, 129 Cash App. Super chat stickers are welcome during this live stream. I'm not going to hold you all much longer. Just wanted to bring you that little information about clearing suspects, DNA evidence. Detectives have the right to go back and interrogate anyone who's gotten DNA and fingerprints done. As you hear from the guys from Off the Cuff, it should be done day one. Because naturally it takes weeks to get those results back. That's why you should do it as soon as you get a suspect or anybody of interest, anybody close to the victim, neighbors, people that live in the house. All those people should be tested. DNA, everything, fingerprints. Even though when you live in the house with the person, your fingerprints are going to be everywhere, but your fingerprints might be in a place that they don't belong, such as on a person's headboard or inside the wall, coming in the bedroom. Just odd places a fingerprint shouldn't be. Like near a closet door or inside of the closet if a person was in there rambling looking for something. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. Well, that's my information for today. I'm going to check out of here, but thank you for your time. If nobody has any commentary today, that's fine, but please check out Law and Crime and News Nation for the said information. All audio is posted to my community board if you need verification for the information. I'm praying that this crime gets solved quickly because it's time for this killer to be apprehended, because I don't know where he's at, what he's doing, in town, out of state. But what would be sad if indeed this is not a personal, somebody that knows them, but somebody who was watching or just chose the house for whatever reason, the girls, and he starts killing other people. And then God forbid the person doesn't live in Moscow. That would be even worse, because now you've got to try to find a person, a ghost, with no fingerprints and no DNA. So did he leave anything behind, the killer? Did he drop anything in the house, outside? Once again, which entry did he use to go inside of the house? Front door, second glass door, or the third floor? Which order were the children murdered? Some people have been concerned about that. And who was the target? I'm going to read you some information off my community board. One second. As I told you in the post I put up about putting this channel in a different direction, something I've been meaning to do last spring. I've posted videos that I've gotten a lot of views on for my stature, whatever. One of my videos I posted 3 years ago around this time got 89,000 views. Dominic McKinney jumped at the funeral home vigil, ? Please check out that content. This is pertaining to the Camille McKinney case, Cupcake. I was talking about her father when some people were alleging that he had been jumped. Those views are almost at 100,000. I just surpassed 2 million views about 2 weeks ago. So I'm sharing these accolades with you all here on this great network. Also, feel free to go over and check my community page for the many lives of the bio mom, West and Missing Cow City brothers. 12,000 views on that. I don't get a lot of views on my videos, 2,000 or so at the most, 3,000. Many people have questioned that. Why are no views? I'm like, well, one, I don't show any content as far as stuff on the computer here. And then two, a lot of people like the fool with rhetoric and gossip and stuff all the time. And I have to have a receipt on stuff. I can't build a network off he said, she said. I mean, even though a version is just a version, you don't know what's the truth, even when told to the police. But still, you don't know. Once again, I had the great opportunity to star in a movie as an extra for Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson, Billy Ray Cyrus, Miley Cyrus, Jimmy Fallon are the stars in this movie. Mountain Magic Christmas came on TV last Thursday. You can catch it on NBC and Peacock. Let's go to my community board. I've asked you all some personal questions because, as I said, I want to go back to what I used to do on my network, which was ask people personal questions, hypothetical questions, and it became a staple on my channel. And I have not done that recently. It's been early part of summer when I last just talked about random topics that don't have anything to do with true crime. And as I told many people, this is not a true crime channel. I talk about various topics, politics, entertainment, and I have yet to really just focus on entertainment, politics, other things going on in the world, hypothetical situations, and I'd like to get back to that. That's what I meant to do back in the spring, but every time I get stuck on one story, it goes on and on and on. It gets winded, and I never end up doing a video about other topics. So I will try to do one crime vault video a month pertaining to an older crime, and then I will be talking about other subject matters besides people who have been murdered, because that's gotten old to me. I'm going to go down my community board and give you the polls that you all took recently. Feel free to go over there and take the polls. Thank you, 911. You find out your neighbor is wanted. Do you tell them to keep quiet? Tell them and keep quiet, 4%. Some of you said you would tell them, but keep quiet, 4%. Keep quiet and remain cordial, 29%. Tell them, call police, 48%. And cut them off, 19%. 171 votes. I pinned this on that poll 3 hours ago. I said, the very reason I make these polls is to see what type of people are out here and on YouTube. Now I know, mercy, the fact some of you have stipulations is baffling. Common sense would tell you that the law would be looking for a person that the law wouldn't be. I'm going to have to redo that. The law wouldn't be looking for a person for jaywalking. But I get it. You'll overlook parking tickets, petty moving violations, VOP for court fines for petty theft. Yet I got a feeling for some, it wouldn't matter what the charge is, you remain silent. Paula Jean says, probably depends on what it's for. Cree says, keep cordial, then call the popos. Somebody else said, I will call the police, but not tell the wanted person. Yes, he says, but I got to think of my kids' safety first. Nobody says depends on what they did. And then somebody else, depends on what it's for. So 1, 2, 3, 3 people basically said it depends on what the charge is. Very interesting. Thank you, Tracy. You just go to my community page. Just go to where you see my face, and it'll have community channels, about, playlists, live. Just hit the circle of my face on my channel, and it'll take you over to the post. Just hit community, and anything I've posted, you will see there. Hold on one second. Shut this door. Background noise. All righty, I'm back. Thank you for joining me. All right. So let's go over that poll again. You find out your neighbors want it. Do you? 48% of you said you would tell them and then call the police. Keep quiet, remain cordial, 29% of you. How many of you have dated online? 22% yes. 32% no. 0% says still do. 46% said would never. You meet someone new, like their company, and they want to date, but they are politically opposite. Do you? See where it goes, 62%. Bow out, 38%. You meet a very nice person, but soon find out he or she is terminally ill. Do you ghost them? 2% said yes. Let them down politely, 12%. Push forward, 73%. And 13% of you said suddenly fade out. You do not smoke cigs, weed, cigars, or any smoke products. Do you date, marry a person who does, even though you do not care for it? 55% of you said yes, and 45% of you said no. You are afraid of dogs and or do not care like them. Do you date a person with pets anyway? 31% yes, 29% no, 40% maybe. You are a Christian. Do you date, marry a person who does not believe in God? If you are not applicable, I asked you to not reply. Thank you. 69% of you said no. You would not date or marry a person that did not believe in God. 13% of you said yes. 17% said not sure, undecided. Your friend tells you that your mate husband made a pass at her. Do you believe her? Confront him and stay, 56%. That was the highest. Believe her, do nothing, 4%. Say nothing, 5%. Accuse her of lying and end the friendship, 0%. Leave him, 35%. So most of you said you would believe your friend, confront your mate, but you would stay. Next question. Your adult child decides to date outside of their race. Do you agree? 91% said yes. 9% of you said disagree but accepted. 0% of you said disown them. Hello, gents. You date a woman and really like her, not knowing she is a man. Do you? I said women. Do not respond. Thank you. Do you cut her off? 73% of you said you would. 4% said you'd secretly see her. Ooh, nasty. 4% said go off on her, act out. And 19% said go off and walk away. Wow. Who is the 4% that would date a transgender person? Who is that guy? I had 26 votes on that question. It was very scary. Your mate husband tells you he has an outside child he fathered while being in a relationship with you. Do you leave? 89% of you said you are out of here. Stay, 11%. Interesting. That was out of 83 votes. You are a happy single woman. Would you date a man with a lot of kids who owes back child support or not? Oh, child support. 0% of you said yes. Boy, that was good. 87% of you said no. And 13% of you said maybe out of 93 votes. I got one comment on that. It's from FROG Frog. That depends on if these kids are with the same mother or different ones. If he got his mess together with keeping his obligations to his CS paid, blah, blah. Okay. Some would probably say no, thank you. I ain't dating nobody with a lot of kids, whether he owe money for them or not. Because you also got to count, how's he going to do for you? God forbid you have children. Is he a go-getter? Is he a way maker? Does he have a decent salary job? Because let's say you meet a man right now with 7 or 8 kids. God forbid some of them are under the age of 18. What kind of life are you going to have? Do you want to be somebody's mother, stepmother? You have to consider all that. Does he have custody of the kids? Partial custody. Those are the things you have to consider. All right, let's go back up. Got a lot of questions. Thank you for joining me. For those joining us now, this is a poll session before I check out of here. Hold on. Once again, 89% of you would leave your mate or husband if they fathered a child while you are in a relationship together. 86% of you said no, you would not date a man with a lot of children, whether he owed child support or not. 14% of you said maybe. If your close friend relative is abusive, neglectful to their kids, would you talk, warn to them, report them, or ignore it? 39% of you said you would talk and warn them. 59% of you said report, and 2% of you said ignore out of 100 votes. Let's read the comments. Only Frog commented, been there and had to do that. I said, wow, 5% of y'all would ignore it? Really? Damn. The very reason children are jacked up, missing, abused, and dead right now. Frown emoji. Love says, depending on their level of abuse. That's still not good. That's not good at all. Ignore 2%. I believe it was 5% earlier. Went down. If you could go back, would you have chosen to not have children? 18% of you said yes. But 82% of you said no out of 93 votes and no comments. Wow. Were you a bad parent while raising your children? 14% of you said yes. 86% of you said no. 88 votes. If you go back in time, would you choose a different spouse? 57% said yes. 43% said no. 88 votes. Got a commenter. Frog, I love my husband. Girl, you just comment on everything, don't you? Golly. Is the killer of Idaho students a cleared suspect or someone else? 40% of you said cleared. 14% of you said someone else. 46% of you said not sure out of 90 votes. With all the news interviews in the past few days with the Gonçalves family, do you think these students' murders were targeted or random? 97% of you said targeted. 3% of you said random. Who was the target in the Idaho student slayings? 80% Kaylee, 6% Maddie, 4% Ethan, 3% Xana, 8% none, 80 votes. One comment. Frog, you just comment on everything. I feel if maybe the girls in general were, Ethan was the one that may have been collateral. Paula Jean says, all these kids were able to live off campus, drive nice cars, plus be in a sorority. I was wondering last night, what do their parents do for a living? People will kill for no reason at all, but give them a reason they can go crazy. Well, I wondered that as well. What do the parents do for a living? Since Kaylee just purchased a Range Rover, and my thing is no matter the years, even if it's 4, 5, 6 years old, it's still a nice truck. It's better than what some people have inside of their driveways and outside of their house. What do these parents do for a living? Do any of them help their children? Which ones actually help their children? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Chapin's parents helped him, the triplet. the boy child that died, his parents, I think, would help him at some point during school. I'd go ahead and say the Gonsalves have helped their daughter. That's 2. Maddie, I would say they've done the best they can. 2. And then with Xana, I don't think so. I don't think she had enough help. Let's say that. I don't know the role of her father, but with the mother, I don't think so. Because the mother doesn't know anything about her daughter. That's my said live stream today. I want to thank you all for joining me. Pray for the Queen in the new year. I would like to, like I said, do some different things with the network that I had promised last year and got sidetracked. No longer. Look for different things, different topics pertaining to this network. Please be safe shopping. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Mind the children. One phone call to the police may save a life. Be careful shopping. Do not post everything to social media. Be careful talking to people in public and in the dark. Do not go to unwarranted places, unverifiable places to buy merchandise, whether it's Christmas or not. Marketplace, same thing. Meet these people at the police station or an open business with lights, preferably during daylight savings time, if you can. Do not take checks. Don't ever. Thank you so much. They are at a secure location, the cars. They're still being processed, the cars. Thank you so much, Sundown. You all have a wonderful week. God bless all of you. Please be safe. This was my commentary, Law and Crime Network and News Nation with Banfield. If you need verification, all audio is posted to my community board via the YouTube queue. I don't know when the next time I'll be back on, but if I do, it will be commentary that has nothing to do with anybody that is no longer living. Thank you so much for supporting this network. Once again, if you'd like to donate, $Beganji 129 Cash App. Stickers, chats, always welcome during the lives. You all have a wonderful evening. I will talk to you guys later. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you for your time.